Hey TV Maniacs, I'm Haji, this is Watch This Instead, and it's high time we revisit one of my favorite topics, miniseries you can finish before bed. We all love those shows that hook you from episode 1, wreck you emotionally by the finale, and somehow still let you sleep at a reasonable hour. So today we're diving back in with a new batch of brilliant, tightly written miniseries, no filler, no 10-season commitment, just pure storytelling excellence. Some will mess with your head, and a few will have you staring at the credits wondering what you just watched in the best possible way. So grab your snacks, dim the lights, and let's get into the next round of miniseries brilliance you can finish in one sitting and still think about the next day. Let's start with something that will quietly ruin you in the best possible way, Maid. This 10-episode limited series isn't flashy or high concept, there's no murder mystery, no apocalyptic twist, just one woman trying to rebuild her life one shift at a time. And somehow it's one of the most gripping and emotionally satisfying shows Netflix has ever put out. Inspired by Stephanie Lance's memoir Maid, hard work, low pay, and a mother's will to survive, the show follows Alex, played by the phenomenal Margaret Qualley, as she leaves an abusive relationship and starts cleaning houses to support her young daughter. From the first episode, it hooks you, not with spectacle but with truth. It's raw, it's intimate, and it's painfully relatable. What makes Maid so brilliant is how it balances heartbreak with hope. It's not just about poverty or trauma, it's about resilience, motherhood, and those quiet, everyday battles that don't make headlines but shape people's lives. You feel every setback, every small victory, every impossible choice Alex has to make. Margaret Qualley gives a career-defining performance here. There's this authenticity to her, a mix of vulnerability and defiance that makes you completely invest in Alex's story, and her real-life mother, Andie MacDowell, plays her mom on screen too, which adds this incredible layer of chemistry and chaos that only real family can pull off. Visually, the show finds beauty in the mundane, cracked countertops, empty wallets, messy apartments, but it never feels bleak. It's grounded, empathetic, and honestly kind of inspiring. 10 episodes, around 8.5 hours total, and you get a full, emotionally rich story that will stick with you long after the credits roll. Watch this when you're in the mood for something honest, human, and quietly powerful, because Maid proves you don't need explosions to feel completely wrecked. Alright, switching gears from grounded realism to full-on psychological kaleidoscope, Maniac. If Maid is about surviving reality, Maniac is about escaping it. It's weird, it's beautiful, it's darkly funny, and it's unlike anything else Netflix has ever made. Created by Patrick Somerville, who also made Station 11, this 10-episode limited series dives into the fractured minds of two strangers, Annie, played by Emma Stone, and Owen, played by Jonah Hill, who sign up for a mysterious pharmaceutical trial that promises to fix everything wrong with them. But because this is Maniac, fixing is the last thing that happens. From there, things get wild. Think dreamscapes, alternate realities, and 1980s computer labs that look like they were designed by someone who's only ever heard about technology. One minute they're gangsters in a crime caper, the next they're elves in a fantasy quest, and somehow it all makes emotional sense. Here's the magic of Maniac. For all its surrealism, it's not nonsense. Every bizarre detour actually means something. Beneath the neon and chaos, it's about loneliness, connection, and the stubborn human need to be seen and understood. It's an existential therapy session disguised as a sci-fi fever dream. Jonah Hill and Emma Stone are both incredible here, quiet, haunted, and totally stripped down from their usual roles. Their chemistry is subtle, not romantic in the traditional sense, but deeply intimate, like two broken people recognizing the cracks in each other. And visually, director Kari Fukunaga from True Detective turns every frame into art. It's retro-futurist perfection, all pastel machines and sterile melancholy. It's 10 episodes, about 6 hours total, and it's one of those shows where you have to surrender to the vibe. Don't try to solve it, just let it wash over you. Watch it when you want something strange, emotional, and visually hypnotic, the kind of series that makes your brain feel slightly rewired in the best way. Next on the list is Landscapers. It's based on a real-life British murder case but told in a way that's so surreal, so beautifully off-kilter, it feels less like a crime show and more like a tragic love story told through a fever dream. The series follows Susan and Christopher Edwards, played by Olivia Colman and David Thewlis, a mild-mannered British couple who become the prime suspects after two bodies are found buried in their backyard. What unfolds isn't your typical true crime retelling. Instead, Landscapers dives headfirst into the psychology of denial, guilt, and the kind of love that exists entirely in its own delusional bubble. And let's just say Olivia Colman is phenomenal. Again, she plays Susan with this perfect blend of fragility and fantasy, a woman who would rather live in her own movie than face reality. David Thewlis matches her beautifully, playing Christopher with heartbreaking loyalty and a quiet sadness that makes the whole thing feel almost tender. What makes Landscapers stand out though is its direction. The show constantly breaks the fourth wall, shifts from film noir to courtroom drama to black and white flashbacks, sets literally fall away mid-scene revealing sound stages, it's meta, it's theatrical, and somehow it all works. 4 episodes, just under 4 hours total, it's tight, strange, and visually stunning. You're not watching a reconstruction of a crime, you're watching two people cling to their shared fantasy as the walls close in. So if you like your true crime served with a heavy dose of surrealism, dark humor, and heartbreaking romance, Landscapers is one of the most original limited series you'll ever see. You can't talk about great limited series without mentioning Band of Brothers. It's basically the gold standard, the blueprint for every prestige miniseries that came after. Produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, it first aired in 2001 on HBO, and even over 2 decades later it hasn't aged a day. Based on the true story of Easy Company, a paratrooper unit in World War II, Band of Brothers follows them from training in Georgia all the way to the fall of Nazi Germany. And while that might sound like a typical war story, it's not. This isn't about explosions and hero worship, it's about people, ordinary guys thrown into extraordinary circumstances, doing whatever it takes to survive. Every episode feels cinematic, the realism, the sound design, the chaos, but what really gets you are the quiet moments, the fear before a jump, the silence after a firefight, the way the show lets you feel the exhaustion, the camaraderie, and the weight of what they've been through. The cast is stacked: Damian Lewis, Ron Livingston, Donnie Wahlberg, David Schwimmer, even a babyface Michael Fassbender before he was Michael Fassbender. But what's cool is that the show doesn't treat them like stars, they're just part of a brotherhood. Every face matters, every loss hurts. Visually, it's stunning, all gritty realism and desaturated tones with some of the best battle sequences ever put on television. But emotionally, it's even more powerful. The interviews with the real survivor soldiers at the start of each episode give the whole thing a gravity that hits different. You're not just watching history, you're feeling it. 10 episodes, roughly 10 hours total. It's a commitment, sure, but it's worth every second. Band of Brothers isn't just one of the best miniseries ever made, it's one of the best stories ever told on TV. Watch it when you want to be reminded of courage, loyalty, and what it really means to stand by someone when everything falls apart. Alright, so after Band of Brothers reminded us what it means to be human, Devs comes along to ask the terrifying follow-up question: what if everything we do is already decided anyway? This is a limited series created by Alex Garland, the guy behind Ex Machina and Annihilation, so yeah, you already know it's going to be visually stunning, philosophically dense, and slightly existential, and it obviously delivers. The story follows Lily Chan, played by Sonoya Musino, a software engineer working at a mysterious Silicon Valley tech company called Amaya. After her boyfriend suddenly dies under suspicious circumstances, Lily starts digging, and what she uncovers is this secret division called Devs, run by a soft-spoken, Messiah complex CEO played by Nick Offerman like you've never seen him before. Now, describing Devs is tricky because it's not really about the plot, it's about the ideas. Determinism, free will, time, reality, you know, light, bedtime topics, but the way Garland explores them is mesmerizing. Every frame is perfectly composed, every line of dialogue feels deliberate, and the sound design alone could hypnotize you. It's slow, but deliberately so, like a meditation disguised as a tech thriller. The cinematography is jaw-dropping, cold gold light, eerie forests, minimalist architecture that feels both futuristic and sacred. It's the kind of show where silence carries as much weight as dialogue. Sonoya Mizuno is phenomenal, subtle, grounded, and quietly fierce, and Nick Offerman gives one of the best performances of his career. Forget Parks and Rec, this is Offerman in full tragic prophet mode, grieving, brilliant, and deeply unsettling. 8 episodes, about 7 hours total, and it's one of those rare shows that will leave you thinking long after it ends, not because of a twist, but because it challenges how you see everything. Watch Devs when you want a series that feels like staring into the universe and realizing the universe might be staring right back. It's haunting, hypnotic, and quietly profound. Okay, so if you've ever wanted to see a detective drama that actually gets the messy, exhausted, and deeply human side of small town life, Mare of Easttown is it. Forget glamorous crime shows with perfect lighting and cooler than new detectives, this one's all cigarette smoke, cold coffee, and the quiet heartbreak of a place where everyone knows everyone's business. Kate Winslet plays Mare Sheehan, a small town Pennsylvania detective barely holding it together. She's investigating the murder of a teenage girl, but the case is just one piece of the puzzle. She's grieving, she's burnt out, she's raising her grandson, and she's surrounded by people who've been in her life forever, which makes every conversation, every lie, and every revelation hit way harder. From the outside, it might look like just another crime drama, but Mare of Easttown is really about community. It's about what happens when tragedy hits a place so small, no secret stays hidden for long. And it's also about grief, how it corrodes people in different ways, and how some wounds never fully close. Kate Winslet is fantastic, like career best fantastic. She disappears into the role. The accent, the wariness, the quiet moments where you can see her thinking before she speaks, it's all flawless. And she's surrounded by an equally stellar cast. Jean Smart as her brutally funny mom, Evan Peters as the charming young detective who unexpectedly holds his own, and Julianne Nicholson, whose performance in the finale, yeah, no spoilers, but it's devastating. Visually, it's bleak but beautiful, lots of grey skies and kitchen table conversations, perfectly capturing the mix of realism and tension. It's 7 episodes, just under 7 hours total, and it wastes zero time. Mare of Easttown isn't about solving the case as much it's about understanding the people living in the shadow of it. It's gripping, emotional, and honestly one of the most satisfying limited series HBO has ever made. Watch it when you want something that's as much about the human connection as it is about catching a killer. If The Wire showed you how a city falls apart, We Own This City shows you what's left after the dust settles, and who's still trying to profit from the ruins. Created by David Simon and George Pelecanos, the same duo behind The Wire, this 6-episode limited series dives deep into the real-life corruption scandal inside the Baltimore Police Department, and it's every bit as infuriating and fascinating as it sounds. The show centers on the Gun Trace Task Force, a supposed elite unit that was supposed to get illegal weapons off the streets. Instead, they became the criminals, robbing citizens, planting evidence, and lining their own pockets. It's based on actual events, and the level of detail here is staggering. Every scene feels ripped from an internal affairs report, but shot with the intensity of a thriller. John Bernthal leads the cast as Sergeant Wayne Jenkins, and he is electric. It's one of those performances where you're both captivated and disgusted at the same time. He's charming, loud, completely out of control, the perfect face for a system that rewards swagger over honesty. The supporting cast bring nuance and exhaustion to every layer of the story. But what makes We Own This City so powerful is that it's not just pointing fingers, it's a post-mortem on an entire system. How bureaucracy, politics, and years of bad incentives create an environment where corruption doesn't just happen, it thrives. There's no melodrama here, no one bad cop narrative, just a city trying to rebuild trust in institutions that have completely broken it. Stylistically, it's classic David Simon, non-linear timelines, overlapping investigations, and dialogue so realistic it feels like you're eavesdropping on real people. It's 6 episodes, just under 6 hours total, and it doesn't waste a second. Watch We Own This City when you're in the mood for something smart, angry, and unflinchingly real, a show that doesn't just entertain, it indicts. After all that grounded realism, let's go big. Blood, dust and mythology big. American Primeval is one of those shows that grabs you by the throat in the first 10 minutes and doesn't let go. It's raw, brutal and strangely poetic, like if Yellowstone, The Revenant and a Cormac McCarthy novel all collided in the wilderness. Created by Mark Smith and directed by Peter Berg, this 6-episode limited series explored the birth of America, not through the eyes of presidents or pioneers, but through the chaos, violence and moral ambiguity of the frontier. It's set in 1857 when the New World was still wild, unforgiving and full of people fighting to define it. And this isn't a one-man odyssey, it's a collision of perspectives. There's Sarah, played by Betty Gilpin, a frontier mother on the run with her son, Jacob Pratt, played by Dane DeHaan, and his wife Abish, the devout newlyweds navigating the Mormon migration, Isaac Reed, played by Taylor Kitsch, a man raised by the Shoshone, torn between two worlds, plus Shoshone leaders like Red Feather and the Mormon militia under Brigham Young. Every one of them is fighting for something: land, fate, survival or redemption, and their stories intertwine in the violent shadow of the real-life Mountain Meadows massacre. What's fascinating is that American Primeval isn't just another western, it's an anti-myth. It strips away heroism and nostalgia and forces you to look at the cost of conquest, to the land, to the people, to the soul. There's a spiritual undercurrent here too. Questions about fate, destiny, and what it even means to be civilized. Visually, it's amazing. Every frame looks like a painting you could hang in a museum if it weren't so covered in mud and gunpowder. The cinematography makes the wilderness feel both majestic and terrifying, a character in its own right, and the sound designed, all crackling fires, creaking wood and distant thunder, you can feel the danger in the air. It's about 6 hours total, but it feels epic. Watch American Primeval when you want something primal, violent and strangely beautiful. A reminder that America's story didn't start with ideas, it started with survival. Alright, let's head somewhere quieter, or at least it looks quiet. The Last Night at Tremore Beach is a Spanish psychological thriller from creator Oriol Paulo, the mind behind The Invisible Guest and Mirage. And it's one of those shows that lures you in with a postcard-perfect setting before slowly unraveling your nerves. It follows Alex, a pianist who's retreated to a lonely stretch of a coastline to escape burnout, heartbreak and pretty much the entire noise of his old life. He's there to recover and write, to clear his head. But one night a violent storm rolls in, he's struck by lightning, and when he wakes up, something's changed. He starts seeing flashes of things that haven't happened yet, or maybe they have and he just doesn't understand them yet. From there, the show walks this perfect line between mystery and madness. Are these visions supernatural, or is Alex's mind just cracking under pressure? Oriol Paulo plays that ambiguity beautifully, layering psychological tension with eerie, slow-building dread. No cheap scares, no over-the-top twists, just a growing sense that something terrible is coming and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. The supporting characters, his neighbors, his friends, the people he starts to doubt, all feel just off enough to keep you guessing. Everyone has secrets, everyone has motives, and that small coastal town, all fog and crashing waves, becomes its own character. Isolating, watchful and full of echoes. It's 8 episodes, about 9.5 hours total, and it's paced like a slow thunderstorm. Calm at first, then suddenly deafening. If you like The Haunting of Hill House or The Gift, this one sits in that sweet spot between emotional drama and supernatural tension. Watch The Last Night at Tremore Beach when you want something moody, mysterious and quietly unnerving. The kind of show that doesn't shout to scare you, it just whispers until you can't stop listening. Some shows entertain you, others wreck you emotionally and make you stare at a wall for 10 minutes after every episode. I Know This Much Is True is the second kind. Based on Wally Lamb's acclaimed novel, this 6-episode limited series stars Mark Ruffalo twice. He plays identical twins Dominic and Thomas Birdsey, two men bound by love, guilt, and the kind of shared trauma that can destroy a family from the inside out. And when I say Ruffalo gives a performance for the ages, I mean it. He doesn't just play two characters, he inhabits them. You forget it's the same actor. The story follows Dominic as he tries to care for his paranoid schizophrenic brother Thomas after a horrifying public incident lands him in a state institution. From there, the show becomes a slow, painful unraveling of their past, their family secrets, and Dominic's own repressed grief. It's not easy viewing, but it's beautifully done. Ruffalo's dual performance is nothing short of astonishing, and it earned him a well-deserved Emmy, but the supporting cast adds incredible depth too. Melissa Leo, Rosie O'Donnell, Archie Panjabi, and Catherine Hahn all bring quiet, grounded performances that make the story feel lived in. Visually, it's drenched in grey New England melancholy. You can almost feel the chill. It's 6 episodes, just under 6 hours total, and every minute is soaked in emotion. I Know This Much Is True isn't a show you binge for fun. It's a show you experience. It's about forgiveness, family, and the kind of pain you can't outrun. Watch it when you're in the mood for something devastatingly human, because this one will stay with you. So what happens when a grounded crime drama slowly morphs into something that absolutely shouldn't be real, but might be? That's The Outsider. It starts like True Detective, ends like The X-Files, and somehow makes the transition feel totally seamless. Based on the Stephen King novel of the same name, this 10-episode limited series opens with one of the most disturbing, instantly gripping setups in recent TV. A small town coach, played by Jason Bateman, is arrested for the brutal murder of a young boy. The evidence? Ironclad. DNA, witnesses, everything. The problem? He has an airtight alibi in another town at the exact same time. From there, what starts as a classic murder investigation turns into something much stranger and much darker. Detective Ralph Anderson, played brilliantly by Ben Mendelsohn, is a man of reason, logic, and grief. He's lost his faith in just about everything. Then, as the evidence starts pointing to the impossible, he's forced to confront something beyond explanation. Enter Holly Gibney, played by Cynthia Erivo, a private investigator with a gift for seeing patterns others miss. She becomes the show's quiet anchor, bringing empathy and curiosity into a world that's spiraling into horror. Her dynamic with Mendelsohn is electric. She's light where he's darkness, belief where he's denial. What makes The Outsider so good isn't just the mystery, it's the tone. It's slow, methodical, and deeply unsettling. The cinematography is drenched in grey and blue. Every frame looks like it's holding its breath. There are no jump scares, just this constant crawling sense of dread that something terrible is standing right behind you waiting. And the best part, it never forgets the human side. Even when the supernatural elements kick in, it's still about grief, guilt, and how people deal with the inexplicable. 10 episodes, about 8 hours total, and it's one of those rare King adaptations that feels both cinematic and grounded. Watch The Outsider when you want something eerie, emotional, and meticulously crafted, a show that makes you question everything, right down to your own shadow. Every once in a while, a show comes along that doesn't just tell a story, it rewrites the rulebook. Watchmen is one of those. It's not a sequel, not a reboot, but something rarer, a reinvention that honors the original and still dares to say something entirely new. Created by Damon Lindelof from The Leftovers, this 9-episode limited series picks up decades after Alan Moore's iconic graphic novel, but instead of retelling it, it expands the world in brilliant, unexpected ways. Set in an alternate America where masked vigilantes are treated as outlaws, Watchmen uses its comic book premise to explore race, trauma, justice, and what it really means to wear a mask, literally and metaphorically. At the center is Angela Barr, played by Regina King in a career-defining performance. She's a police officer by day, a masked vigilante by night, and the emotional core of the show. Through her story, Watchmen dives into America's buried history, starting with the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, a real event rarely depicted on screen, and weaving it into a sci-fi narrative about legacy, identity, and power. Regina King is phenomenal, fierce, funny, and deeply completely human, and she's backed by an incredible cast. Jeremy Irons, Jean Smart, and Tim Blake Nelson all bring complex, layered performances. Jean Smart especially steals every scene she's in, dry, sardonic, and heartbreakingly sharp. Stylistically, the show is pure Lindelof, non-linear timelines, philosophical monologues, and a constant balancing act between absurdity and awe. The visuals are stunning, a mix of noir shadows, surreal dream sequences, and pop art boldness, and the score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is easily one of the best ever made for television. What makes Watchmen so special though is its ambition. It's not content to be a superhero story. It's meditation on inherited trauma, systemic injustice, and the stories nations tell to hide their sins. It's heavy, but it's electrifying. Every episode feels like it's building towards something that matters. 9 episodes, about 8 hours total, and not a second wasted. Watchmen is the rare series that sticks the landing and leaves you with your jaw on the floor. Watch it when you want something bold, brilliant, and unapologetically original, because this isn't just one of the best limited series ever made, it's one of the best shows, period. Next on the list is 5 Days at Memorial. Based on true events, this 8-episode Apple TV Plus miniseries tells the story of what really happened inside a New Orleans hospital in the days after Hurricane Katrina, when the power failed, the floodwaters rose, and the line between compassion and survival started to blur. It's adapted from the Pulitzer-winning book by Sherry Fink, and the attention to detail is unreal. The series captures the chaos and moral confusion of a situation no one was prepared for. Doctors, nurses, and patients trapped inside Memorial Medical Center as the storm rages outside, cut off from help, running out of supplies, watching the temperature rise hour by hour. At the center of it all is Vera Farmiga as Dr. Anna Poe, a respected physician who becomes the focus of a gut-wrenching ethical dilemma. When help doesn't come and conditions turn desperate, what choices do you make to protect the lives or ease the suffering of those who can't be saved? Farmiga is phenomenal. She plays Poe not as a hero or a villain, but as a human being trying to do the right thing when every option is wrong. The supporting cast all deliver equal powerful performances, each representing a different moral angle of the same impossible crisis. Visually, the show nails the suffocating tension. You feel the heat, the darkness, the claustrophobia. The cinematography goes from sterile hospital lighting to candlelit chaos, and the shift is seamless. By the final episodes, it feels less like you're watching TV and more like you're living it. It's 8 episodes, about 7 hours total, and it's not an easy watch, but it's an important one. It forces you to sit with uncomfortable questions. What does humanity look like when systems fail? How far can empathy stretch before it breaks? 5 Days at Memorial is haunting, compassionate, and meticulously crafted. The kind of series that doesn't just tell a story, it demands reflection. Watch it when you're ready for something heavy, real, and unforgettable. If True Detective, Dark, and Doctor Who had a very stylish British baby, it would be Bodies. This is one of those rare limited series that manages to be both wildly ambitious and ridiculously fun to watch. A sci-fi mystery that spans centuries without ever losing its human core. The setup sounds simple at first. A naked man is found dead in an alley in London's East End, but here's a twist. The same body appears in the exact same spot across 4 different time periods: 1890, 1941, 2023, and 2053. 4 detectives, 4 eras, 1 impossible crime. Each timeline has its own tone, style, and genre. The 1890s story plays like gritty Victorian noir. 1941 is all shadowy wartime intrigue. 2023 feels like modern-day procedural chaos, and 2053 is pure dystopian mindbender. And somehow, all 4 threads weave together seamlessly. The writing is tight, the editing is masterful, and by the end, it all snaps into place in a way that's both satisfying and brain-melting. The cast is excellent across the board. Kyle Soller brings intensity to the Victorian detective, Shira Haas is brilliant in the 2053 storyline, and Amaka Okafor anchors the modern-day plot with a quiet determined strength. Everyone gets their moment and every era feels distinct yet connected. What makes Bodies stand out is how it uses its time travel premise to say something meaningful. It's not just about solving a mystery, it's about the cyclical nature of history, how patterns repeat, and how the same moral choices echo through time. There's action, there's emotion, there's philosophy, and it's all wrapped in a perfectly polished 8-episode package. Visually, it's stunning. Each timeline has its own color palette and texture, from gaslit alleys to futuristic skylines. It's like watching 4 different shows that just happen to tell one story. 8 episodes, about 7 hours total, and it's one of the most addictive limited series Netflix has ever released. Watch Bodies when you want something twisty, smart, and stylish, a perfect late night binge that will have you whispering, "Wait, what?" at least once an episode. If you're craving something that breaks every genre rule and still makes it look easy, Giri Haji, which translates to Duty Shame, is the one. It's part crime thriller, part family drama, part existential art piece, and somehow it all works. The show opens in Tokyo, where Detective Kenzo Mori is sent to London to track down his missing brother Yuto, who also happens to be a Yakuza member presumed dead. The problem is Yuto might be alive and his actions could spark an all-out gang war back home. What starts as a personal mission quickly spirals into an international mess involving cops, gangsters, and moral grey zones on both sides of the world. But what makes Giri Haji so special isn't just the crime plot, it's how deeply human it is. Every character feels layered, flawed, and real. Kenzo is not a stoic hero, he's a man torn between his duty to his job and his loyalty to his family. In London, he meets Sarah, a lonely detective played brilliantly by Kelly MacDonald, and their connection, awkward, heartfelt, and understated, becomes the emotional heart of the show. Tonally, Giri Haji does something wild. It switches styles constantly. One minute it's a gritty Yakuza thriller, the next an indie dramedy, and then suddenly a hand-drawn animation sequence or a quiet philosophical moment. But instead of feeling chaotic, it feels alive, like the show's reflecting how messy life really is. It's 8 episodes, about 7 hours total, and Giri Haji isn't just about crime, it's about guilt, love, and the impossible balancing act between duty and desire. It's heartfelt, unpredictable, and cool in that unforced, effortlessly cinematic way. Watch Giri Haji when you want something offbeat yet deeply moving, a show that somehow balances samurai honor codes, British awkwardness, and raw human emotion in one perfectly told story. Let's wrap this up with a show that will have you glued to the screen yelling "he didn't do it" one minute and second guessing everything the next. Defending Jacob is a masterclass in quiet tension. A slow-burn family drama disguised as a courtroom thriller, and it's one of Apple TV Plus's best early hits for a reason. The story centers on Andy Barber, played by Chris Evans, a respected assistant district attorney in a quiet Massachusetts town. His life seems perfect. Successful career, loving wife, smart teenage son. Then everything collapses when his 14-year-old Jacob is accused of murdering a classmate. Suddenly, Andy's not just a prosecutor, he's the father of the accused. What follows isn't just a whodunit. It's a deep dive into what happens when trust fractures inside a family. The show plays with your loyalties constantly. One minute you're sure Jacob's innocent, the next you're not so sure. Every scene tightens the emotional vice a little more. Chris Evans gives one of the most grounded, nuanced performances here, miles away from Captain America. He plays Andy as a man torn between logic and love, between his duty to justice and his instinct to protect his son at all costs. Michelle Dockery is phenomenal as his wife Lori, her slow unraveling is gut-wrenching to watch, and Jaden Martell nails that unsettling teenage ambiguity. He's distant, awkward, and unreadable in a way that makes every glance feel like a clue. The pacing is deliberate. Each episode builds dread rather than relying on twists. The muted cinematography matches the tone perfectly. Cool, grey, and emotionally claustrophobic. You feel the walls closing in both on the family and the viewer. 8 episodes, around 7 hours total, and it sticks the landing. Not with a big reveal, but with emotional devastation. Because at its core, Defending Jacob isn't about guilt or innocence, it's about terrifying possibility that you might never truly know the people you love most. Watch Defending Jacob when you want something deeply emotional, morally complex, and quietly haunting. The perfect finale to a night or list of brilliant miniseries that remind you just how powerful short-form storytelling can be. And there you have it, 16 brilliant miniseries you can finish before bed. Though, let's be real, a few of these might keep you up staring at the ceiling for a while. Each one hits hard, finishes strong, and reminds you why short-form storytelling can be just as powerful as any long-running series. If you've already seen some of these, let me know your favorites in the comments or drop the one you think I missed this time. I'm always adding to the list, and honestly, although I covered 18 shows in the first video and now 16 more, I feel there's still material for more videos, so watch this space. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, share it with a fellow TV addict, and make sure you subscribe if you want smarter TV recommendations, hidden gems, and deep dives that don't waste a minute, kinda like the shows we just talked about. Thanks for hanging out, happy binging, see you next time, and remember, sleep is optional if there's one more episode.